You ever look at a map of modern Europe and wonder, how did all those countries get there? I mean, their borders seem so permanent now, right? But their creation? Well, that's a story of revolution, war, and one single incredibly powerful idea that literally changed the world forever: nationalism.
Okay, let's just dive right in with this incredible image from 1848. Now, this isn't just some painting. It's a dream captured on paper, a dream of a new Europe where people aren't just subjects of some distant king, but citizens of their own free, democratic nations, all marching together in this great procession of humanity. This right here was the powerful, utopian vision of nationalism when it was just getting started.
So how did Europe get from this beautiful dream to the often bloody reality of the nation-state? In this explainer, we're going to follow the journey of that one powerful idea, nationalism, and see how it completely reshaped an entire continent.
And our story begins, as so many of these revolutionary tales do, in the powder keg of late 18th century France.
You have to remember, before this, your identity was tied to your city, maybe your village, or some king you'd probably never even meet. You were a subject. Nationalism came along with this totally radical new idea that you could be a citizen, united with millions of other people who speak your language, share your culture, and have the same history.
Now, what's so fascinating to me is how the French revolutionaries took this big, abstract idea of the nation and made it feel completely real, something tangible that ordinary people could get behind.
They gave it a voice with brand new concepts like la patrie, the fatherland, and this new status, le citoyen, the citizen. They gave it a symbol, the tricolor flag. And they gave it real power through a national assembly and a single, uniform system of laws for everyone. This was a conscious, absolutely brilliant effort to build a new French identity. And with that came this powerful belief that it was France's destiny to go out and liberate all of Europe from the old monarchies.
So, let's see how this revolutionary idea got carried across Europe. And it wasn't by philosophers, it was by soldiers, all led by one of history's most complex and contradictory figures, Napoleon Bonaparte.
And this slide, wow, it just perfectly captures the whole paradox of Napoleon, doesn't it? Here's a guy who was basically a dictator who destroyed democracy in France, and yet his armies became these unintentional missionaries spreading the revolutionary ideas of liberty and national identity right across the continent.
A huge part of this was his famous civil code from 1804. I mean, this thing just swept away centuries of aristocratic privilege. It established equality before the law, and it got rid of the whole feudal system. So this wasn't just some dry legal document. It was a modernizing bomb that was welcomed by tons of people, especially that growing middle class who were just hungry for change.
But Napoleon's empire didn't last. It fell. And in 1815, the old powers of Europe, the monarchies he had kicked out, they all met in Vienna with one single goal in mind: to turn back the clock.
So, the crucial thing to get here is that the kings and emperors of Austria, Russia, Prussia, and Britain saw nationalism and liberalism as an existential threat. These ideas challenged their God-given right to rule. Their goal wasn't just about making peace, it was about crushing these dangerous new ideas for good.
They literally redrew the map of Europe, not based on what the people wanted, of course, but to restore the old balance of power. And this meant creating new autocratic regimes that censored newspapers, suppressed free speech, and just ruthlessly crushed any and all dissent.
But, even the architect of this whole conservative crackdown, the Austrian Chancellor Duke Metternich, he knew what was up. As he famously put it, when France sneezes, the rest of Europe catches cold. He understood that the revolutionary spirit was out of the bottle and there was no way they were getting it back in.
And Metternich was absolutely right. Because by this point, nationalism wasn't just some political idea being debated in pamphlets. No, it was becoming a matter of the heart. It was a powerful cultural force.
This new cultural movement, romanticism, it had a totally different idea of what makes a nation. It wasn't about logic or science. It was all about emotion, intuition, a feeling of shared, mystical heritage. The Romantics basically argued that a nation isn't just a government or a piece of land. It's a collective soul.
You had German philosophers like Johann Gottfried Herder, who claimed that the true spirit of a nation, the Volksgeist, wasn't found in some fancy royal court. No, it was found with the common people, das Volk. It lived in their folk songs, their poems, their traditional dances.
So you take this cultural firestorm, you mix it with widespread economic hardship, and boom, you get another wave of revolution sweeping across Europe. The educated middle classes were leading the charge, rising up everywhere from Paris to Poland, demanding an end to monarchy and the creation of new nation-states with constitutions and a free press. Now, those liberal revolutions of 1848, they were mostly crushed by the old conservative powers. But the dream of national unification, it didn't die. It just changed. It got harder, a lot more cynical, and way more ruthless.
Yeah, the failure of 1848 led to this really crucial, hard-edged question. Can you really build a nation on just dreams and poems? A whole new generation of leaders started to think that a tougher approach was needed. And that brings us to Otto von Bismarck of Prussia. This guy was the master of real politics, a new kind of politics based on practical power, not on high-minded ideals. He had zero time for liberal speeches. He believed the great questions of the day would be decided not by votes, but by blood and iron, by military force.
And he was a man of his word. While in Italy you had leaders like Count Cavour using clever diplomacy to unite the peninsula, Bismarck's path was war. Plain and simple. He brilliantly used the super-efficient Prussian army to provoke and win 3 short, decisive wars against Denmark, then Austria, and finally France, systematically bringing all the scattered German states under Prussian control.
And then came the final, hugely symbolic moment. On January 18, 1871, in the unbelievably opulent Hall of Mirrors at the Palace of Versailles, a deep humiliation for France, the Prussian King William I was proclaimed the emperor of a brand new, unified Germany.
And just like that, the journey was complete. An idea that started as this utopian dream about a brotherhood of nations had ended in the hard, cold reality of the nation-state, forged not by ideals, but by pure force. This whole turbulent period created the very countries we live in today. Nationalism absolutely built the modern world. But it also leaves us with a pretty provocative question, doesn't it? What happens when this powerful force, the one that unites a group of people, is also used to divide and exclude everyone else? That right there is the complex and often dangerous legacy of nationalism's rise in Europe.